we will be talking about different types of formulas. One is called absolute and one is called relative. Now when we write formulas, it may seem very straightforward, but there is a basic difference between two types of formulas, and the best way to understand this is by illustration. Let's take a look at our screen whereby we have a company called William Patterson Corporation, quarterly sales for 2011, and this company consists of 4 locations, and they have different numbers of salespeople in the different locations, and this represents the sales as well. Now this is just a introduction to understand why we'll need to understand absolute versus relative addressing. Let's continue. Let's write a formula to figure out what percentage is the East compared to the whole 4 divisions. So it's 1,500 out of 8,000. How should we write that? Well, we can type in equals and refer to the cell where it's 1,500, division, and let's refer to the 8,000, and let's press enter. And we see we have 1875. If we wish, we can make this a little bit nicer by putting in a percent, by going to the top and clicking the percent. Notice it does round it, and if we do want to have more decimal places, we can change it by expanding it to have the appropriate number. So this we already know. But now let's copy the formula down, and let's see what happens as we utilize the same formula for the next 3 rows. Lo and behold, we have that div divided by 0, which we saw in a previous module. What is going on? Well, let's take a look what it says on the screen where we typed in C5 divided by C10. When we go down to the next cell, Excel copies the formula, but notice it says now C6 divided by C11. Now C6 is correct. We do want it to be C6, but we do not want it to be C11. Now why does it copy C11? The reason for this error is because Excel assumes when the formula is copied down, it is going to be a relative address. What this means is that the formula pattern, which is 1 to the left, let's take a look, the pattern is really 1 to the left and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down will be copied when we use the copy formula. As we go down, let's take a look. As we go to the left, skipping the blank cell, it's really 2 to the left otherwise, and we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we notice we are now down at a blank cell. And that's what it means over here, div divided by 0, because you can't have a value when you divide by 0. And if we go to the next cell, next row, and look what happens there, again it's copying to the left, 2 to the left, and again it's copying down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, and we again have divided by 0. So how can we correct this? Well, very simply, we want Excel to maintain the denominator to be at C10 like it did in the very first cell. How do we do that? We do this by introducing absolute addressing, and this is how it's going to save us rather than relative addressing. Now how do we do it? This can be accomplished by putting dollar signs around the cell we want to be absolute. So watch what I'm doing. Put a dollar sign there, and I put a dollar sign there, and I'll press the enter key or the check mark. Nothing has changed, but notice as I now copy it down, what happens? It will now give me a correct result, because now the cursor, when we put it on cell E6, it says C6 divided by C10. It does not change, the C10. Let's go down another row. Again, C10 does not change as we continue going down. Now, we put in the dollar signs. There's even an easier way to do that, and I'll show it to you. It won't make any difference, but it'll make it slightly easier for us to put in the information. If I would start again, I'm going to just erase the data that I had so you'll see what it really does. I'll put in equals again, equals C5 divided by, and I'll put in the C10 like we did before, but now I'm going to make use of what's called the absolute key. And what I'll be doing is pressing the F4 key. When I press that one time, it gives me the two dollar signs. And if I now press the check mark, it gives me the correct result. And if I copy it down, you'll notice it gives me what I had before. Okay. We're going to be using relative and fixed addressing as we continue. The important thing to remember is that an absolute address is needed when the number should be fixed, and relative addressing would be used where the cells are integrated in relation or relative to the location of the cell containing the formula. And the advantage of a relative address is that you can create a general formula that you can use again and again. But really, depending on the application, relative can be very useful and absolute can be essential as well. And we'll have to see as we do other examples what we need to do. Now, we would like to just fix up our spreadsheet to make it look a little nicer, and I'll do that in the next few seconds. First thing I did was merge William Patterson Corporation across the cells from A to E, and I made the font size larger to size 18. I took the second line, quarterly sales for 2011, and I also had it spread out by merging, but I did not enlarge the cell font. I decided to make William Patterson Corporation bold, so we did that next. I'd like the background of William Patterson Corporation to be blue, so I'll click in there and I'll go to the top of my screen and I'll look for an appropriate color, which is not too dark, and we can put in that color accordingly. How about making the first letter of William and the first letter of Patterson and the first letter of Corporation in red? I can do that by going to the W on top, and I look for the appropriate color. In this case, I want it to be red. I can click on that. Notice it changes to red. And I can do the same thing for Patterson. Either I can start over again and repeat exactly the same process, which is pretty straightforward, and Corporation, exactly the same process, and now I have my letters accordingly. Let's end this module with a very useful formula. Notice the 0% was copied automatically when we copy the cells down, and we can get rid of it by just deleting it. But we can take advantage of what Excel has built in, whereby it'll eliminate all unnecessary zeros when you have a very big spreadsheet and you have zeros popping up and you don't want to go from cell to cell. And the way we can do that is we'll click on top over here by the Office button, and then we'll go down to Excel Options, and we'll go to where it says Advanced, and we scroll down to one of the choices over there where it's going to tell us that we do not want to show the zeros. Now let's find it over here where it says show a zero in cells that have zero value. We're going to uncheck that. Let's now say OK, and watch what happens to our zero. It has now disappeared. Very useful. And if you have many zeros on your spreadsheet that you really didn't need, you can do exactly the same thing.